Should you start bikepacking? This isn't going to be one of those videos where I say yes, bikepacking is the best thing ever and everyone should get out there and do it. No. Because the honest answer is it depends. Bikepacking isn't some magic switch you flip and suddenly life gets better. It won't fix your problems and it definitely isn't always fun. There are people who should start bikepacking and there are people who probably shouldn't, at least not yet. So instead of telling you what you want to hear, I want to talk about who bikepacking actually works for, who it doesn't, and what bikepacking really looks like once you stop buying into that filtered version you see online and actually experience it for yourself. This isn't a video about epic trips, expensive bikes, or quitting your job. So maybe the better question isn't should you start bikepacking, it's whether it's right for you right now. So, who should start bikepacking? Bikepacking works best for people who are willing to figure things out as they go, rather than trying to do it perfectly from the start. Curiosity and a desire for the unknown. It works best for people who are willing to start without having it all figured out. If you need certainty before you begin, bikepacking will feel uncomfortable very quickly and might just not be for you. If you are okay figuring it out as you go, you will be much more likely to be the type of person suited to bikepacking. Because the moment you start doing it the way everyone else says you should, it often starts to feel wrong. Following other people can give you motivation or ideas on what could work, like timelines, kit lists and routes, but not being comfortable finding your own path will limit yourself. Someone who is okay figuring things out for themselves is truly going to be suited for bikepacking, because once you get on them trails, bikepacking becomes just that. Figuring out anything and everything day by day. Time management, fixing things, different trail types. If you enjoy overcoming obstacles by yourself, then you are probably well suited to bikepacking. Definitions of success can turn bikepacking into something it was never meant to be. What works for someone else, even someone experienced, won't automatically work for you. Bikepacking is the art of travelling using the lesser travelled path. And that sometimes means going places that seem a little out there, remote or just much harder to ride, which can and does make bikepacking a little less desirable to someone who is not ready for that. There's been a recent shift over recent times and the word bikepacking has sort of lost its meaning. You see, you might be thinking of getting into bikepacking and think, well, I have packed my bike with bags, so I must be bikepacking. And while I'm a big advocate to call it what you like, as long as you're doing what you want to do, if you then search for your first bikepacking route and start following it, you might then become surprised about taking the path less travelled. You see, there are two types of travelling by bicycle. Bikepacking, travelling from A to B or quite often around some kind of loop, but using the path less travelled. More commonly off-road where it can be, often staying away from the built-up areas. While on the other hand, touring, travelling by bicycle again from A to B, or again it can be around a loop. Typically touring was used for people going on really long trips, but really the distinction is that touring indicates using paved surfaces, roads or cycle paths. I think this distinction matters because maybe bikepacking isn't for you, but perhaps touring is. Should you start bikepacking? Well, are you looking to travel by bicycle off-road, or are you actually looking to start touring? Still traveling by bicycle but using paved surfaces? Are you someone who wants to primarily be very self-sufficient because that lends itself more towards bikepacking? Or are you someone who enjoys your creature comforts more because touring will be what you are looking for, as touring tends to not avoid them built up places? Beyond independence and curiosity, bikepacking is about flexibility and patience. Things will go wrong, plans will change. Trails will be harder than you expected. You might set out thinking you'll cover 20 miles and end up riding half of that. Weather might turn, gear might fail, or a path you thought would be easy could be overgrown or impassable. The kind of person suited to bikepacking is patient, willing to adapt, and comfortable embracing the imperfect, messy parts of travel. It's about learning to adjust on the fly, whether that's deciding to push through mud, change your route, or accept that a plan you carefully made no longer works. Small frustrations will happen constantly, and the person suited to bikepacking doesn't get deflated by them. They learn from them, adapt, and keep moving. Bikepacking rewards people who are willing to learn by doing, experiment with what works for them, and discover their own path instead of trying to replicate someone else's. It's about embracing uncertainty, making decisions constantly, and being willing to accept that the ride will be a mix of triumphs and mistakes, and moments of quiet revelation. The right person finds value not in perfection or speed, but in the process itself. One of the things that make bikepacking worth thinking about is how it fits with life right now. Let's be honest, it's not free, nothing is. Not really. You still need a bike, some bags, maybe a tent, food, and a few bits of kit. But the act of riding a bike is pretty close to free, and certainly free feeling. But here's the thing, you don't need the newest carbon frame, the most expensive bags, or a wardrobe full of ultra specialized gear. If you've got an old tent in the shed, a bike that's been sitting in the garage for a while, and a few basic bags, heck, just some straps to attach it, that's enough to start. Should you start bikepacking? Maybe, because what matters isn't the gear, it's making what you have work and finding joy in using it. That's where the freedom comes in a world where everything feels expensive. Holidays, flights, experiences, bikepacking gives you an alternative. A weekend away with just a plan to camp under the stars. Using what you already have can feel far more satisfying than a holiday you can barely afford. It lets you experience the outdoors, explore new places, and feel like you've gone somewhere meaningful without needing a big budget. Should you start then? If you can see the value in taking what's already yours and turning it into an adventure, the answer could be yes. Bikepacking lets you travel, explore, and feel a sense of freedom without needing a huge budget. Maybe you have dreamed about visiting a place, but getting there is too expensive. Bikepacking can be a way of getting to that place for a fraction of the cost, all while gaining new memories, stories, and experiences along the way. Not that long ago, this part of bikepacking felt very different. Years ago, there simply weren't the amount of routes that exist now. You couldn't just search for a ride and find something that had been ridden, tested, refined, and documented by hundreds of people before you. Bikepacking started with paper maps, guesswork, and a fair bit of uncertainty. You'd link together bridleways, forest tracks, quiet roads, and hope they connected the way you thought they would. Sometimes they didn't, sometimes a trail was just a line on a map that barely existed on the ground. And that uncertainty was part of the appeal, but it also made starting feel harder. Today that barrier is much lower. Routes have been ridden again and again. People have worked out what goes, what doesn't, where the hiker bike sections are, where resupply makes sense, and what kind of bike actually works. If you're asking yourself whether you should start bikepacking now, it's never been easier to find something that suits you rather than forcing yourself into a route that doesn't. Even though bikepacking is still very much about off-road travel, that doesn't mean it has to be extreme, remote, or punishing from day one. There are routes that lean more gravel than single track, routes that stay closer to towns, routes that are shorter, flatter, more forgiving. You can choose something that fits the bike you already own, the time you have, and the level of discomfort you are willing to accept. That choice simply didn't exist in some way years ago. And if none of the existing routes quite fit, it's never been easier to make your own. With maps digitized and tools readily available, plotting a route now is far more accessible. You can zoom in, see surfaces, elevation, land access, and stitch together something that makes sense for you. You don't need to be an expert navigator or spend hours with a highlighter and a paper map anymore. You can start small, test ideas close to home, and build confidence over time. So when people ask, should you start bikepacking? Part of the answer is this: you're not starting blind. You have more information, more options, and more flexibility than ever before. The challenge isn't finding a route anymore, it's choosing one. Bikepacking isn't always fun, it's not always life-changing, and it definitely isn't always enjoyable. Most of the time, it's honestly just quite ordinary. You get tired, you get cold, progress is slower than you expected, you make decisions that don't work out, and you deal with them. There's no big lessons in those moments. It's just part of moving through a place under your own power. Some adventures you just want to end. Some days you don't feel motivated. Sometimes the route is worse than you hoped, or the weather just drains your energy. This just means you're doing it properly. And if you're wondering, should you start bikepacking, it's worth knowing this. Once you set off, understand that not every day delivers something memorable. Some days feel rewarding. Some days just feel long. Both are part of it. Bikepacking doesn't promise a good time. It promises a real one. Most of what you see online makes bikepacking look effortless, epic and glamorous, but what you've heard, what you've imagined, probably isn't the full picture. So here's the real question: do your expectations actually match what bikepacking is? Most people think bikepacking is about doing something massive right away. Big trips, fancy bikes, quitting your job, or riding to the end of the earth on your first trip. That is the version the internet and the brands sell you. All epic mountains, sunsets, and perfect gear setups. Have you noticed how clean they all are? But real bikepacking is not like that. Bikepacking can start small. It can be overnighters, local loops, or even just exploring somewhere near home. But the reality is usually very different. There are cold mornings, mechanical problems, long stretches where nothing goes right, and snot all over the place. And days that feel just ordinary. The people who get the most of it are not chasing epic Instagram trips. They are creating their own experience and enjoying the journey on their own terms. So should you start bikepacking? In your mind, you probably already have the answer. It depends on what you are looking for and what you are willing to embrace. Bikepacking is not a magic fix for life, and it will not make everything easier or instantly more meaningful. It can be uncomfortable, frustrating, and slower than you expect. But it can also be freeing, exciting, and surprisingly simple if you're willing to work with what you have. Go at your own pace, figure things out as you go. If you can find value in exploring, in figuring things out day by day, and enjoying the small things along the way, then yes, bikepacking is worth starting. You do not need the perfect bike, the most expensive kit, or the most epic routes. You need curiosity, patience, and willingness to embrace the journey's ups and downs, the reality that comes with travelling under your own power.